Time to continue Group B here at Red Bull Battlegrounds, and you know what? We just saw an amazing matchup between ThorZaIN and Sheth. Then we saw a matchup versus SaSe and ThorZaIN, and now the winners of both of those matches are going to be facing off right here, SaSe versus ThorZaIN.
It's going to be a battle of the Swedes here at the Red Bull Battlegrounds, and honestly, these two players just played absolutely brilliant games, and I'm super excited to see them duke it out. Now, I did want to note that we are, of course, running a little bit behind schedule if any of you have your programs out. So we're going to try to pick the pace up starting around when Group C starts. We'll be doing Group C and Group D simultaneously. Don't worry, we'll still cast all the games, but we're going to be going at warp speed, Marcus.
Warp speed. It's okay. It just means you're going to be getting more StarCraft more often. The frequency is going to increase a little bit, so it's all good.
Well, that's fine. At this point, let's go ahead and take a look at the standings right now. Obviously, in Group A this morning, we got to see Violet narrowly edge his way out of the group 2-1. Stefano demolishing everyone in his path 3-0. Ganji putting up great series against all three players, and Illusion almost had that breakout performance that he needed, but still gained a lot of fans this morning.
Yep, and not too many folks surprised about that, but of course the games themselves surprised over. Illusion almost making it, but that's how player Group A actually pans out. And of course, Group B, now we see our first winners, and that's not quite updated with ThorZaIN's win over Sheth, but we promise you that is the case. SaSe did win over ThorZaIN, a surprising win, 2-0.
In 21 minutes, as you were saying beforehand.
So quickly, yes.
I mean, it was really incredible how, I would say maybe game 2 was a little bit of those, I didn't scout it properly. Losing to a 4-gate at a very nice time. Sure, SaSe waited 3 warping rounds, a little unusual, but I think everyone would understand that loss.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Of course, game number 1 was a different beast. There certainly was great decision-making by SaSe that won him that one. But, SaSe said we're going to see a little bit different stuff out of him this time around. And, certainly we haven't seen anything necessarily new, but he's making all the right decisions. Now, of course, ThorZaIN going up versus SaSe. There they are right there. You mentioned the Battle of the Swedes. It's quite interesting considering that SaSe's been over in Korea for quite some time. Training with StarTale very often. And, of course, his counterpart, ThorZaIN's going to be heading over there soon.
So here are the absolutely complete up-to-date results in the tournaments with ThorZaIN and SaSe now duking it out. Sheth and ThorZaIN will be going up against one another on the Rob Husky stream. And I do want to talk a little bit about ThorZaIN's general training regimen, because you were talking about SaSe training with StarTale in Korea, obviously a really ideal training environment. ThorZaIN hasn't really had that training house environment through much of his career. Obviously now joining EG, getting a chance to move to the EG layer in Phoenix. But ThorZaIN meticulously studies his own builds, spends hours in single players, and when he plays back-to-back-to-back-to-back games and gets it perfect, he emails himself the replays. And when he goes to tournaments, he'll open those games up and just make sure he knows all the exact gas timings. And as a result, he can get the exact right army as quickly as possible.
That's pretty interesting. And of course, his results, they say quite a bit. You look at his achievements, most recently winning DreamHack Open in Stockholm, originally breaking through with a win over Naniwa in the 2011 TSL 3. And, just based off of his versus matchups percentage-wise, they're all pretty consistent. Versus Terran, his toughest one. So can he use that 63% to his advantage? SaSe is going to be one hell of an opponent to go up against, and ThorZaIN is sitting 1. So very much like Group A, we're going to see the 2 winners face off, and that means that, of course, the winner will most likely be moving forward, advancing out of the group. And there we see SaSe.
Yeah, now SaSe, it's kind of funny, both these players are very talented at the matchup we're seeing. We saw ThorZaIN at over 60% win rate against Protoss. Now we see SaSe, same situation. To note, 55 to 60% is considered stunning in a matchup. Now up to over 60%, almost 70% versus Terran. And the thing is, if you think about that in just one game, okay, I can see that there's maybe a strong chance he loses, but once you extend that to best of 3, the odds of him losing 2 of those 3 games is so tiny. And a lot of the achievements that SaSe has actually managed to land have been quite recent.
Yeah, I mean, the Team Liquid All Kill at the IPL Team Arena, the Red Bull Land, not that long ago. The MLG European Invitational was not too long ago as well. So, you're right. And although we haven't seen SaSe have that breakout tournament, he's definitely been scouting. He's looking for it.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's only a matter of time. It really is.
And it's funny that on Quantic, they have huge international representation, but I think that SaSe, along with Naniwa, are really the two ace players for Quantic. Illusion, his teammate, now gets a chance to potentially avenge him, get more Quantic in the top round of 8. But the first map that they'll be playing on is going to be on Metropolis, which we just saw ThorZaIN come out of against Chef, and I honestly have no idea who I think this matchup would favor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you even begin to think about it. Obviously, you've got some large open air spaces in between some of the main bases, so possibly drops, which ThorZaIN has been adding in quite a bit ever since the Red Bull training land, in which that was one of the aspects he focused on. SaSe, that he likes to use the Warp Prism and can use it well. Will we see that come into play? As it certainly did during his matchup versus the other Terran, Tasia. So Metropolis is going to be a very, very interesting match to kick things off with. And we'll have to see how this will exactly unfold.
Yeah, most importantly, Metropolis is big. Huge distances between the mains. You saw how long that Chef ThorZaIN game went with the split map between the two. Would not be surprised to see some of that coming up. ThorZaIN does very much so prefer just direct engagements. His Ghost Viking control is near flawless, so if he can just get that perfect composition up, I think SaSe will have a hard time. SaSe's in the game, just calmly sitting, calmly waiting, and has to be just reviewing some of those builds in his head.
Yeah, I want to really quickly go back to what you said about ThorZaIN and his ghost control. It's one of the things that when I see him play versus Protoss, it really sets him apart. His positioning on them, being very quick reaction to snipe those Templar. I mean, just the whole control when you're just using them, various avenues, various paths on the map. It certainly can be a difficult thing to do. ThorZaIN seems to really, really have that mastery.
And it's interesting because it's not just the Ghost Viking mastery that makes his late game so incredible. It's the late game Nitro Boost Reapers, where he starts getting less and less Marines, starts churning in the Reapers. It's very interesting. He just completely obliterates that front line of Zealots, and then he can do the counter harassment, and then he starts incorporating nukes. His late game is some of the most diverse and difficult to deal with of any Terran I've seen.
Yeah, we saw him do that Reaper build, or at least, the late game Reapers most recently versus Sake. He ended up losing that series overall, but if that was any indication, I mean, Sake is great at that late game Protoss versus Terran, something that some Protoss have said they've had a really difficult time with. So, frankly, we have not seen a whole lot of SaSe's long game play in the Red Bull event so far.
And it's interesting because in some of his historic long-term play, he's had near perfect execution up to maybe 15, 16 minutes, but it's that key late game mixture where you really need both Colossi and Storm and a really watchful eye on the minimap for all those counter drops. And we've seen SaSe have some Colossi, but maybe not enough. He can't really deal the huge damage output that he needs, or he'll miss a couple of Storms and it'll backfire. So in the games I've seen, SaSe, that is perhaps his one weak point, that he just needs to start fleshing out that post-20-minute game.
We're just waiting for ThorZaIN to get in. He's just joined in, so we should be getting this game started here momentarily. The other matchup taking place right now, of course, Chef versus Tasia, which is equally important because, of course, that means that Tasia and Chef, the loser, could potentially be out of the running to advance on to the championship brackets tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting sort of coincidence because all the match ordering was planned in advance, but anytime you have the two winners and two losers playing against each other, very often you already know who one of the people advancing is and who one of the people eliminated is. And it's all going to come down to who can manage to pull off the win in this series to be able to cinch that one win. Now, obviously, neither player is eliminated yet in any situation.
Right.
But it's very hard to end up with a huge, 3-0 with a three-way tie with 1-2, 1-2, 1-2.
Right. I mean, possible, likely. know, but we'll have to exactly see how these games will play out. ThorZaIN just making some final adjustments to his settings, because as you mentioned in the last matchup, these guys are very meticulous about how they set up, how they play, and getting, you know, just those perfect settings to make sure that they are going to battle with that. And ThorZaIN has just joined us, so we will find out if both players are ready, and we'll get this match started very, very soon. Thanks for joining us here for Red Bull Battlegrounds. We are live from Austin, Texas, here at Austin City Limits at the at Austin City Limits at the theater, Moody Theater. Thank you.
It looks like ThorZaIN has just confirmed that he is ready. So to everyone who's hanging out here live in the movie theater, are you ready? Looks like our players are being counted in. The map will be on Metropolis. Both these players known for churning out so many games, for having very well-refined builds. And man, is it all going to come down to macro at this point. It is cross-map positions in the Southlands. We do have the incredible Swede who always wears a hat to all his major tournaments. It's Quantic SaSe.
And in the north, as the Red Terran, having an incredible game versus Seth. More Hunter-Seeker missiles than I think I've ever seen in any matchup. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for EG ThorZaIN.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest, almost always in one of these big, long cross-map positions, it's easy to succumb to some sort of crazy cheese if you are someone who practices a little bit too much. It's very easy to say, you know what, I'm really struggling versus people who go for this 3-base Colossus play, or I'm working against drops. But on a map of this size, it's very difficult to actually scout all possible angles. And we see often Terran players will hide a second barracks along this edge here, or just right between the two bases here, and end up with just some nice push that's very simple to recover from. At the same time, I don't know how much these players do the metagame consideration. What are the trends of my opponent and this sort of thing? They both tend to be just, this is my build, I'm going to do it, and I've practiced it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been absolutely just shocked to see ThorZaIN go for some sort of aggression. But to be frank with you, one day that is going to be the saving grace of ThorZaIN. A guy who likes to play those macro games, who likes to play the longer games, is going to have an advantage one day when he's just like, you know what, I am going to get aggressive in this game, and no one will ever see it coming. But SaSe, on the other hand, you know, I think that he's more of the general toss-up here. Like, he's the unknown one, the mysterious man, because he can go with some ultra crazy aggression. He can go with those types of, you know, unique styles of play. So I think ThorZaIN is definitely going to be looking to be on the defensive, and a cautious version of that defensiveness.
And I love how SaSe gets exactly 16 probes up and then just begins rallying probes into his geysers. And there he is, adding on a second probe. We'll rally into this, and then we'll have 2 in each geyser. And then we'll re-rally and then have 3 in 2, etc., etc. And now, given the fact that he has done no scouting, he will make that initial Zealot, follow up with a second Zealot, and it could be a very similar opening to what we saw in the last match.
Yeah, here we have the SCV making his way in. He's going to get a quick scout of everything going on here at ThorZaIN's camp. You can see he's got these 2 Marines just setting up, protecting this SCV from building that command center, while the second Rax is coming up, and of course the 2 refineries, which typically follow a build like this. SCV will go ahead and get out of there, and look at that, the Nexus goes down almost immediately here for SaSe. So he is going with what he did most recently in his last match. Of course, he ended up canceling that Nexus, so we'll see what happens.
Yep, there it looks like we do see the chrono boost on the warp gate. I'm doing a full check on vision to see if he's going to be heading for that. Looks like ThorZaIN. Does he have any SCV hiding on the mini-map? It looks like he was essentially done with his sort of scouting. So no information gleaned yet except for that key bit, the double gas. Did he see that? Wow, it looks like he didn't even see that. So ThorZaIN now going for the reactor tech lab.
It's a bit surprising he didn't see that, but I suppose.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought for sure he got clear vision of everything that he saw right there, and we do have a robotics facility going down over on the other side with the second gate that followed up with that as well. Meanwhile, on the other side, the third Rax is down for ThorZaIN, just getting out his initial Bioforce, rallying to that bunker there.
Yeah, and look at this. I mean, it seems like the Swedish players are the ones really clever about putting 2 in gas. ThorZaIN has had 2 in gas this entire time for that perfectly timed economy. And ThorZaIN is one of the few players I've seen almost impervious to any of these early shoves that we've seen players do. He still has at least a full minute to build or before that next big push can happen, so we can build a bunker right now. But SaSe, by going for this early robo facility, will pretty much have to get up a whole bunch of observers right off the bat. But look at SaSe, just kind of doing a little bit of a trick. If for some reason ThorZaIN is getting a little too skimpy on the defense, he'll pull back, but almost all the time, SaSe will retreat.
Yeah, lucky that there was no concussive shell there. Could have caught a couple of units off guard. Now this SCV did see this pylon, and will he move out to try to take it out? Looks like no. SaSe going to get back into position. This SCV can check on that army position a little bit later. I'd be surprised if he actually did go in for the attack, but ThorZaIN's not going to be thwarted by that. He is ready for it.
Now, if some Marines are at the front, SaSe's very good about throwing down force fields to pick it off. Now beginning to work down the destructible debris. ThorZaIN can do this unload, pick off a Zealot with that aggressive micro. And look, ThorZaIN is doing a depot so we can warp in Marines. Get it?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, nice
Every
proxy.
Terran's wet dream right there. Yeah, we're coming right from the back, but not going to happen this time. These rocks are going down. More bio joining here. We do see the Warp Prism and we see the Robotics Bay going down currently for SaSe. So, you know, he's definitely keeping his opponent to have a very watchful eye here on these rocks and this group up at the front. The Warp Prism could swing in around here to the back. Who knows what kind of damage could be done.
And it looks like SaSe is going to see the fast at Ghost Academy coming out of ThorZaIN. ThorZaIN now does have that 1-1, building that pair of ghosts for that big, big EMP push. Got to be careful, though. Nice timing on that, but Stim is nearing completion.
Oh, yeah, it is almost done, and that'd be really bad. In fact, he's continuing to chase. Very thoughtful force fields, and I think he will save himself a little bit from that one. Wow.
He just wanted attention his whole life, but no one ever gave it to him. The poor Warp Prism will go home alone.
Yeah, I think it was just rallied over there, and he didn't get a warp in ahead of time. That's unfortunate because it's kind of given up the element of surprise there, and it will back off, possibly to go in yet another day.
And it looks like now the observer from SaSe does see the ghosts have a very nice timing, where literally the amount of time it takes for them to walk across the map is the amount of time it takes to get enough energy for an EMP. Now, SaSe does have this monstrous Colossus here, but he needs the range to be done. And, I don't think it's going to be done in time, Marcus.
No, it's very, very close, but this group is getting ready for an attack. The Warp Prism is over here, again, idle inside the main base, not even ready to warp in units. We see a couple of pylons going out here, and great delay coming out here by SaSe, throwing some force fields down.
Seconds he needs, 10 more seconds, and it looks like he may very well get it.
Yeah, very, very thoughtful as we do have it. There we go, finishing up right now. And look at that. At the time that ThorZaIN wants to go ahead and get out of there, we do see the Warp Prism has now been ejected as well. So, you know, this time where everything went right for SaSe versus TaSe, SaSe has not had, he's had quite a few mistakes, if you will, or just unfortunate events take place. And where he's meant to do damage, he's done absolutely none. But he's getting ready to move out now. 2 Colossus range. Let's see how he does.
And now SaSe, finally, this Warp Prism has wanted to go into pylon mode his whole life. Hopefully he'll get a warp in and be able to do some harassment, but at this point in time, that Warp Prism has been largely just a moot investment for SaSe. But with those 2 ranged Colossi, he can now make a pretty nice push, still on 2 base. Very common if you go for this very fast Colossus.
And did lose the proxy pylon, but going to work that way back up as well. And here he goes, giving away his Colossus, now very well aware of what SaSe is up to and looking to engage here. Great EMP, although he did not. Oh, the second one, though, got most of those sentries' energy. There's going to be very few force fields here. He throws down what little force fields he has.
ThorZaIN at an incredible angle. It's the bottom flank he needs to worry about as those Marines Marauders are sprinting up very comfortably. But it was all a distraction as we see that there's some big drops going on in the main base with a pair of Zealots, but 3 Colossi get picked off. See you later, Colossus. And ThorZaIN is looking to be in prime position.
Yeah, these two Zealots still continuing to hammer away at these SCVs, and quite a bit of damage was done there inside the main. Actually, 8 SCVs, that was it. I'm a little bit surprised, but he did. No, that wasn't that much damage, to be frank with you. Losing all those units, losing the Colossus at the front. I mean, great engagement for ThorZaIN.
Now it looks like double Forge going down for SaSe. The one saving grace is that this map is huge. Terran have the worst reinforce of all the 3 races. They have to wait for the unit to pop out of the barracks and then walk all the way to the front of battle, and don't even have creep to help speed them up. So this does mean that ThorZaIN, though he's at an advantage, he might even have to wait until he gets 2-2 upgrades done to really press forward. And this is a nice read by SaSe. He saw the double starport. He sees all the Vikings being produced. Insta-switch to Templar.
Yeah, and I really like the consideration in something like this. All these Vikings continue to come out, and although he has ceased production, he already got enough that are going to prove to be useless when there are... No, he hasn't stopped yet. 3 more on the way. That'll make 8 total. And trying to get that factory over to get a scout on exactly what is happening, but the initial Archons are out, and charge about ready to complete.
And I think this was a really subtle move that we saw SaSe do, warping in the 2 Stalkers, is to not reveal that he was getting speed. And also, more importantly, Stalkers are always the unit you make in combination with those Colossi. So he's really still doing this Colossus feint quite well. And gosh, ThorZaIN is just churning out the Vikings non-stop.
Yeah, well, another one joining the crew. He's got a total right now of 9 Vikings. 10, 11 are on the way right now. And he's going to have to figure that out quickly and get a land off. We have a Zealot moving out, try to get a quick scout, but it looks like he might clash head on. And there's the scan. He's going to know that he's been bamboozled. There are no Colossus. There's the split. Is he going to move forward and go for it?
Looks like he has 9 Vikings out anymore in production. No mass medevac being churned out, and a single ghost. Ooh, ThorZaIN is on the run, stimming. Only has these 3 medevacs, broke on energy in the main. There is no proxy pylon, though, so SaSe does not really have an ability to continue to press his advantage. Without that proxy pylon, the reinforce ability is just as bad as Terran.
+2/+2 coming out here for SaSe. Over on ThorZaIN's side, already at 1-1. His +2/+2 is definitely closer. And there's the land of the Vikings, anticipating that there could be a potential attack right here. But as you mentioned, no proxy pylon means no reinforcement. So SaSe does bring his whole group back and is looking to kind of establish his third. ThorZaIN well underway, and the income tab kind of telling that story. It is about even in terms of harvesters, but with that third base getting up, a little bit more efficient mining coming out of ThorZaIN.
ThorZaIN is just always so good about having these perfect distributions of workers across all 3 bases, perhaps a few more at the third, but he will be building a 4th shortly, no doubt. And also interesting to see that ThorZaIN really makes use of 3 bases. He's not trying to go for a 4th too fast, just trying to devote as much as he can to getting that infrastructure up and running. And with this point, there's really no tech switch that you can make as SaSe that's going to catch ThorZaIN off guard.
Yeah, I mean, what was a little element of surprise that he had was found out quickly by a scan, and there is another one. He sees the High Templar. He knows that Storm has to be right around the corner, but doesn't know that it isn't finished yet. And actually, an engagement right now would definitely be in ThorZaIN's favor. He's going to land the factory right in between these 2 groups of units to make it much more difficult to engage. Great job. The force fields guaranteeing that he was not going to get in and get any additional damage done. ThorZaIN played that one nicely, but SaSe counter with some great force.
God, it's just such a great factory land. SaSe, very comfortable with expanding in this situation. That is a bold play. And with the number of Templar out, it could be the difference between 1 big EMP or 1 big Storm. Storm is one of the funkiest abilities in the game, especially in this matchup. If you just land 2 Storms, you can devastate a Terran army. If you miss even those 2 Storms, you can lose your entire army. So even with all these, it's like buying a whole bunch of lottery tickets.
You might win, but you're just spending more money. Now, I mean, with the Ghost in play and with the Factory floating, he's got a good shot here of being able to see any time that SaSe is going to move out, either to the left or the right side of the map. But here these Ghosts, now that they've got personal cloaking, moving up, and this is exactly that type of Ghost control I was talking about earlier, getting those preemptives. He can get the snipes, avoiding the feedback. There's the snipe. He's looking for it. Oh, double feedback. We missed it, but there it was. He completely devastated those two Ghosts going up from the side, but he was looking to land those preemptive EMPs, and I think that is, you know, very thoughtful of ThorZaIN to try to get that damage done on those shields and then move in, go for a kill.
This can be somewhat of a tricky position when you're in SaSe's shoes. Do you want to start adding on the Robos? Can you afford to wait? Do you have to build the Zealot Archon to try to get Max to deal with this huge force? And it looks like there's a one big storm if he can get off a second one. Looks like, oh, he's charging in, and all of them just get obliterated in terms of energy. They're the big EMPs down again. SaSe will be forced to cancel. No, he misses. And now it looks like SaSe is in a very, very bad position.
Yes, ThorZaIN continuing to land EMPs. All the Immortals lose their heart shields almost immediately, and there is so much bio. We do have a few Zealots being coming from the back, but it's not going to be enough. All that is left as well, nothing. This is going to be a quick...
And there's a good game.
Still on the third. GG!
You know, again, if you can just land 2 or 3 beautiful storms, that can just be it. Terran can lose their army, and it can be just 200 food to nothing in an instant. But, I mean, ThorZaIN, I think, honestly, SaSe may have gotten a little overeager in that position.
Yeah, and you know what? Versus a player is going to have really good EMPs with their Ghosts. Like, I'm just not sure that you could do that. I mean, ThorZaIN was sending the Ghosts out ahead of his army. He always had them in a good position. So even when he got hit from that back, he landed not only the snipes for the initial Templar that, of course, really wanted to kill that one Marauder with those storms, but also hitting the EMP on the big group of Templar. I mean, it was pretty evident that SaSe was still going up for the storms, and then like, oh, I have no energy, realizing that, having to morph the Archons like right in front of ThorZaIN's army.
And it was getting in the way of all the Zealots and all the damage. It was literally the perfect situation for ThorZaIN, especially with that one big destructible rock right there at the natural, making all of SaSe's units in a tight funnel. And this is really, I think, characteristic of ThorZaIN. He just waits for you to make that one mistake. And even if ThorZaIN gets completely obliterated at that point in time, what helps him so much is that he cleared out his half of the map. If his entire army gets demolished, sure, Protoss can do Zealot warp in reinforcements so quickly, but nowhere near ThorZaIN's half of the map because there's no pylon there. So ThorZaIN still has a backup plan if it ends up failing.
Yeah, we also rewind a little bit as we find out what our second map is going to be, but rewind a little bit and remember about that Warp Prism that did less than nothing. It literally it flew into his opponent's base to let him know that, hey, ThorZaIN, I've made a Warp Prism. He flew it over to the island. He got it ready to warp in some units. Finally, he did warp in Zealots directly on top of the mineral line there inside the main base of ThorZaIN, but it just did not matter.